Let's clear the air right now. If we start a game of Catan, we're all on equal ground. But as soon as you put the robber on my hex, or cut off my progress in some way, we are no longer on friendly terms, and I will pay you back. And if I don't get to pay you back, then we'll be at war for the rest of the game. It only lasts in the game, and if we start a new game, everything resets. But in that game, I hold grudges. Until I see a definitive winner, then strategy dictates that I must hinder that individual for the best chances at winning. Also, hurry up and make your dang turn already. I've already finished building a house out of my unused pieces. Catan is a board game where you take a few minutes to take your turn, then wait an eternity as your slowest family member tries to figure out how many cards they have in their hand and if they can actually build a settlement or not. Catan Universe is just the digital version of the board game Settlers of Catan, but without the setup and put away time. Catan is a strategy game where you gather resources from dice rolls and earn victory points by building settlements, upgrading to cities, having the longest road, largest army, or having special development cards. Once you have a predetermined amount of victory points, you win. Catan Universe's client Frontend was developed by Endava, and its backend was developed by SuperNimbus. Catan Universe was released on Steam in 2017, but has also been made available on a lot of different platforms at different times. Plus, there was also a server migration at some point, too. I've played Settlers of Catan on Steam and on my mobile phone. It's cross-platform, which is nice, but the game hasn't always been very stable, judging by all the negative reviews from people who have lost their money. So I'd advise playing free-to-play or only pick up the base game or find another way to play online with another client. When we first bought the physical board game, we also unlocked a few months trial period to play Catan online at unboxnow.com, but that requires you to have an account with Osmo Connect, but even though I own the physical version of the game, I only unlocked a trial of the online version, which is kind of dumb. I thought the key was actually for Catan Universe, but it's a whole different game apparently. I think there's an unofficial pirated Steam Workshop version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator 2. All I'm saying is that you have options. But the free version of Catan Universe isn't bad, and that's what we're mostly reviewing today. If you feel confident enough to buy stuff from Catan Universe, go for it. But I'm personally not going to because I don't trust that I actually would be able to keep what I bought. Catan Universe's support is notoriously bad as of recent history in 2024. If I did buy something though, I'd get the base game to unlock the most features available. If the client had no problems, I'm pretty sure Catan Universe would have a generally favorable reception from people who played it, because most people I know really like Catan as a game. But sadly, I've seen way too many reviews warning about losing accounts, losing credit for purchasing content they unlocked in the game, games getting frozen up from the AI, servers being shut down and reset, and other problems. I'm just not comfortable in actually buying anything in this game because I think I'd just lose it. But I'm okay with playing stuff for free and sharing what's available for you to play if you download Catan Universe on your phone, computer, or other electronic device. Something you should be aware of right away with any version of Catan Universe is that you'll be making an account as soon as you load the game up. It's also not linked to your Steam or Google or Apple account. You'll sometimes need to re-log in even though you just launched the game a few minutes ago, so don't forget about your registered email and password. After you've created your account, you can use that account to log in on any device. I switched over to my phone to play while I was away from my computer, or sitting in the bathroom. When we're talking about the story for Catan, the story could go in a few different directions. 1. The story on the back of the box. 2. The story of how Catan the board game was made. 3. Lastly, I can regale you with my story of playing Catan over the years. Alright, well, we'll just start with the first one then. The back of the Catan box reads... What's a good explorer voice? Screw it, we're just going to do a pirate voice. Arr, welcome to the uninhabited island of Catan, where you and your fellow explorers will collect treasures, barter, trade, and build up for settlements to make flourishing communities. Yarr, arr. In my own words, you landed on this island and you are not alone. There are other rascals who landed here, and they took all the other good places. You gotta build up your forces before they do, but I would have just marched over with an army and kicked them in the shins. And that's why I should probably be playing Civilization instead of Catan right now. Don't mind me. I could also spin the story in another way, where we landed on this island and just die of dysentery, but that's a different game. The story for how Catan was made is an endearing one because it was made by Klaus Teuber, who was inspired by the history of Viking settlers in Iceland and started working on the game in 1991, and Catan officially hit store shelves in Germany way back in 1995. Settlers of Catan continued to snowball in popularity to the point where he eventually became a full-time developer. Sadly, Klaus passed away in April of 2023. His 2 sons continue to run the company and the development of the Catan world together with the Catan team. I can't help but be delighted about the background of Settlers of Catan. This wasn't some huge corporate conglomerate which pumps out heartless, soulless games. Who else can think of some video game developers that fit that bill, huh? Now, everything kind of tends in that direction over time, and businesses gotta stay in business and sell stuff to people. I get it. But I think at least the base game of Catan has that spark of inspiration that Klaus Teuber left behind. I think it's fair to say we have Klaus Teuber to thank for the more interactive types of board games we've seen since then. It turned a corner from Candyland, where you just moved your piece around a board, or get to the end to win, or Monopoly, where you ruin all your friendships. I really haven't played any board games quite like Catan, and the closest comparison would be Sid Meier's Civilization, and the 2 games are wildly different from each other, one being a board game, the other a video game. And the third way that you can spin this story, I had a friend group where we played Catan together on Sunday evenings in the winter. I don't remember how it all started, but I took online college and found myself living in a small town with all of my high school friends moving away. My younger brother, a few of his friends, and a young family opened their house to us visiting nearly every Sunday to play Settlers of Catan and Wii Bowling or Bomberman. There's a number of different experiences I had with this motley crew. Never mind, there was a slight bit of weirdness for me, being older than my brother and his friends by a few years. When I was in high school, I made a clear delineation between myself and anyone younger than me. I wanted to be the cool older brother. And to be that, I had to be too cool to hang out with anyone younger than me. But that wasn't cool, it was childish and selfish. There's no real reason for it other than that. My wife comforts me saying, around our early development years, from birth up to and beyond 18 years old, we changed so rapidly and drastically that it's only natural there would be some friction between my brothers and I while growing up. That's kind of her, but it really was just stupid selfishness that drove me. There were a number of different things that happened to eventually get me past that phase of life, but actually having this group to play Catan with was part of that growth. I'm grateful to still have my brothers now because they've been my best friends since we've all moved out on our own. But I do regret my behavior when I was in high school. There's a lot of stories I could tell from adventures our little Catan group had. Camping in the winter, which was a bucket list of mine. Going camping and hiking in the Badlands. Being rained out of our no-tent camping in the Badlands. I don't remember very specific things from our time playing Catan. I do remember enjoying our time together. I remember very rarely winning, but we did seem to win in turns, and it wasn't just one person dominating the game every Sunday. But I also remember the Settler of Catan's horror story. The identity of those in this story have been hidden for their protection, and because I can't remember what their names were anyway. The following is a true story. Sometimes our little Catan group would open up and we would have a few other friends who would join us. Oftentimes they wouldn't have any experience with the game and they'd need to learn the basics of the game and would sometimes have questions which we didn't know the answers to, so we just defaulted to house rules in those situations. Well, we had our usual group of myself, my brother, one of his friends, the other guy was AWOL this fateful Sunday, and the couple hosting us. But this time we had 2 new strangers who joined our group. So of course, we had the expansion set for Catan because it's normally only a 3 to 4 person game. The game started as it always did, pretty standard, questions asked, rules learned, settlements placed, dice rolled, resources collected, trades made, and eventually midway through the game you can clearly see who's competing for winning the game because the rest of us are over here with our turns taking a few seconds because we don't have space to go anywhere or resources to expand anywhere. A trend started to take place. As the turns were taken around the table, we noticed once it reached the 2 newcomers' side of the table, suddenly time would warp and we would not get to play again for 20 to 30 minutes. And as the game continued into its final act, this trend became more and more prominent as they argued about nuances of rules, offered trades, disagreed over strategies, and just generally took forever to finish their darn turn. I remember the last turn of the game, one of them had so many freaking cards in their hand, and their partner was cross-examining if they were actually making legal decisions, and 3-for-1 trades into the bank to earn the last victory point to win the game. It got so bad, we just left. We got up from the table and started playing Bomberman on the Wii in the other room. By far the worst game of Catan I've ever played. We didn't get together to play Catan again for months after that happened. We look back at it now and laugh, but god dang was that awful. So by this time, you probably already have a bit of a grasp on how to play Catan, but to explain the gameplay of Catan Universe, you really just need to start with how to play Catan in general. The best way to explain Catan Universe is to start with the base game. You start the game by selecting where you want to place your settlements. The board is made up of various hexes representing different resources: wood, brick, wheat, sheep, and ore. You'll also see numbers with dots under them. These dots represent probabilities this number will be rolled. The red numbers, for 6 and 8, mean these numbers are most likely to be rolled. When you roll the dice, everyone who has a city or settlement on that number gathers resources from the rolled number. You may notice the lack of the number 7 on the board. That is because it is the most likely to be rolled and has some special rules about it. When you roll a 7, if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you need to discard half of them. Then, you also get to move the robber onto a hex, which then blocks anyone from getting resources from that hex until the robber is moved again. In the physical game, as well as in the digital game, you have a card placed in front of you to remind you of the cost for building settlements, roads, cities, or development cards. Catan Universe simplifies some of this by making it so you can just click or tap anywhere a thing goes and automatically showing the cost. So if you tap between 2 long parts of a hex, it'll show you that to build a road there, it'll cost 1 wood and 1 brick. If you tap on a settlement, it'll show you can upgrade it to a city for 2 wheat and 3 ore. You get the idea. There are a few ease-of-life features in Catan Universe I appreciate, not just because it completely removes the time to set up and put away the board. You can also review how often a number was rolled in your game. You can toggle on a status bar, which shows your total cards and turns red whenever you have more than 7 cards. You can also look at the status bar under the characters to show how many victory points someone has to easily track who's winning. The expansions available for Catan Universe at this time are Seafarers, Cities and Knights, Special Scenarios, Rise of the Inca, and Rivals of Catan. Each expansion has its own twist on the game. These twists can help level the playing field for experienced and less experienced Catan players. However, I firmly believe that you can do your best and still just win or lose based on luck. You are rolling dice, after all, in this game. There's 2 game modes you can play, single player and multiplayer. A good place to start is to knock out all the tutorials where you'll be taught how to play Catan by, who I now realize is Cartoon Claus Tuber. After completing the tutorial, you'll be rewarded with 3 suns, which are used for single-player games. For single-player, you can choose the version of Catan you want to play and then select a scenario which will change how the game is played. For example, the base game has 4 scenarios available. The first island, which is a great place to start, a larger version of the first island for more players, or for wool scenario where there's a lot of sheep but no mines, and lastly Harbor Master, where trade and harbors have increased significance. Scenarios might also have different layouts for the tiles for a completely different play experience. For multiplayer, you have a special auto match for free players called Free Match, where you queue up with other players who have similar karma levels as you. Karma levels are based off of how often you drop out of games early. Better karma if you stick with the game all the way to the end instead of rage quitting. You can also make a custom game to play with friends, but if you only have one friend, you'll need to include an AI so you have 3 players. You also can't play a custom game with more than 3 players, so I can't play a game with 3 friends, only 2 friends. As a free player, you can't do any other maps other than the first island, and can't make any changes to the game's settings unless you buy the Catan base game. There's plenty of other stuff in the game. An almanac. I hate this word. An almanac to search for whatever you might need clarification on for the rules of Catan, your player profile, which has achievements, a customizable avatar, board piece style and color preferences, level progress rewards, guilds, and message features. You can chat while you're playing too, but only if you buy the base game. We're locked out of a lot of content playing free to play. So that moves us right along to our next topic. Exactly what can we do as free-to-players in Catan Universe? When you play Catan Universe, you have 2 main ways to play: single player against bots and multiplayer against real people. When you play free-to-play, you're only able to play a single-player game by spending suns. You get a new sun every 12 hours, and after you've played through the beginning tutorial, you'll get 3 one-time use suns. All this to say, if you bought the base game of Catan Universe, you wouldn't need to spend suns to play it. But even if you had the base game, you still need to use suns to play any of the expansion packs you don't own to play single player. And you can't even play multiplayer games on any of the expansion packs if you don't own them. And again, you can play free match where you'll queue and play a 3-player game with other free-to-players on the first island scenario. You can also play custom match with 2 other friends, but not 3, because that would be too much. Gotta pay for that. You also have a few profile and avatar customizations, but that's about it. If you're just here to play a game or 2 of Settlers of Catan, or practice before your next board game bout, or have a game installed to play on your phone for approximately 20-40 minutes, Catan Universe fits the bill. If the game ever becomes stable enough that we can reliably buy the base game without fear of losing credit, it would be easy to recommend this game. And once again, it is conclusion time. Settlers of Catan, the board game, is great. Regardless of whatever happens to Catan Universe, that statement does not change. Thank you, Claus Tuber, for making this excellent board game. However, seeing as this review is about Catan Universe, it's only fair we pass judgment based on it. As I've said numerous times throughout this review, I like the game, but I don't know that I can trust it enough to actually buy anything in the game. As far as free-to-play goes, there's way worse ways to go. I didn't run into any ads. You can actually play Settlers of Catan single player, every 12 hours, and queue up with the rest of us free-to-play scrubs to beat me because my luck is horrible. But yeah. On that note, thanks for watching. Slap the like button, comment your Catan stories, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you aren't already, ring that stupid bell, follow my social media accounts because I'm lonely and want to interact with people. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.